The Pacific sky was heavy that morning, a pale expanse washed in light and silence. Below, the ocean stretched endlessly, its blue surface broken only by scattered islands and drifting clouds of mist. From a distance, it looked peaceful, but peace was a lie. High above the water, a single aircraft carved its way through the humid air. A marine corsair, its dark wings glinting with salt and sunlight. Inside, the pilot's hands rested steady on the controls. The engine murmured beneath him like a restrained animal. Then, as if some invisible switch had flipped, the calm was shattered. A sudden roar tore through the sky. The plane's 6 Browning .50 caliber guns erupted. But something was different. The sound wasn't the familiar rhythmic thud of a machine gun. It was faster, denser, almost continuous. It's as if the air itself couldn't keep up with the weapon's fury. Tracer lines cut through the mist like streaks of molten light. 20 enemies, Japanese Zeros, dived in formation, but their precision dissolved within seconds. One by one, their paths bent into smoke and flame. For those who witnessed it, the scene didn't make sense. The Corsairs' guns seemed unnaturally alive, as though they'd been tuned beyond their limits. Later, rumors spread among airmen. One Marine had re-engineered his aircraft's guns by hand, pushing them past the boundaries of design and reason. They said his weapon could fire twice as fast as any in the Pacific. They said it turned air combat into an execution. They said it killed 20 men per minute. But in war, innovation and madness often look the same. And on that day, no one could tell which one he had achieved. By 1944, the Pacific War had become a machine that consumed everything: men, fuel, metal, and hope. The U.S. Marine Corps, forged in island battles and naval airfields, depended heavily on its aircraft to survive. Among these, the Vought F-4U Corsair stood apart, a powerful, gull-winged predator designed to dominate the skies. Its reputation was built on speed and firepower. Equipped with 6 Browning AN M2 .50 caliber machine guns, the Corsair could unleash a storm of bullets powerful enough to tear apart enemy aircraft or shred ground positions in seconds. But to many pilots, even that wasn't enough. Japanese fighters, particularly the Mitsubishi A6M0, remained dangerously agile. They turned tighter, climbed faster, and often struck from above. Dogfights were rarely fair. One mistake could mean a fiery spiral into the sea. So pilots began to experiment, adjusting gun synchronizations, tweaking ammunition belts, and sometimes, unofficially, modifying their weapons to gain even the smallest edge. Among them was a Marine ordnance specialist turned pilot, remembered only through fragments of logbooks and hangar stories. He was fascinated by mechanical rhythm, by the idea that every gun had a heartbeat. If that rhythm could be accelerated without destroying the weapon, perhaps it could change the balance of the air war. He spent nights disassembling his Corsair's Browning guns, filing, oiling, replacing springs, and reducing friction where the factory had left safety margins. His aim wasn't to break the machine, but to liberate it, to let it fire at its truest, most ruthless potential. The result, they say, was terrifyingly effective. A modification so simple it almost felt accidental, yet so powerful it became legend. A weapon born not from a factory, but from obsession. The Browning AN-2 was a marvel of wartime engineering, a weapon balanced between precision and endurance. It fired at roughly 750 rounds per minute, per gun. 6 of them together could unleash a synchronized torrent of destruction, but this synchronization was also its weakness. The mechanism was designed to protect itself, to avoid overheating, jamming, or catastrophic misfire. What the Marine discovered was that these limits were not absolute. By altering the recoil spring tension and polishing the feed mechanisms, he found that each gun could cycle faster, not wildly, but rhythmically. The barrels still held, the belts still fed, but the rhythm changed. The sound, they said, was no longer a staccato rattle. It became a sustained growl, a mechanical roar that merged into a continuous note. In controlled bursts, the modified Corsair could now unleash nearly 1,200 rounds per minute per gun, almost double its standard rate. That meant, in theory, more than 7,000 rounds per minute across all 6 guns. For a brief window, the air in front of the aircraft became a curtain of metal, dense enough that no Zero could pass through unscathed. This was not just a modification. It was a statement, a reminder that innovation in war often emerges not from laboratories, but from the quiet defiance of individuals. While Japanese engineers sought lighter airframes and maneuverability, American pilots chased raw output, more speed, more fire, more noise. The Marines' creation embodied that philosophy to its extreme. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't official, but it worked. And in the chaotic mathematics of aerial combat, efficiency didn't always belong to the most advanced machine. Sometimes, it belonged to the one who dared to push beyond the manual. In the haze above the Pacific, the experiment met reality. The Corsair, dark blue against an ocean of silver, roared into formation with its squadron. Below, the islands smoldered under late afternoon sun. The enemy appeared as dots rising from the east, Japanese Zeros, lean and confident, banking hard into intercept. The Marine eased the throttle. The Pratt and Whitney engine trembled with restrained violence. His gloved hand brushed the trigger switch, feeling the vibration of potential energy coursing through metal. Then, as the distance closed, he pressed. What followed was not the familiar chatter of 50 calibers. It was thunder. A single, uninterrupted streak of flame and sound erupted from the wings, the barrels glowing almost instantly, the recoil slamming through the fuselage like a heartbeat. The air ahead turned opaque, shredded by a continuous wave of tracers. The Zeros broke formation too late. One vanished into smoke, another disintegrated mid-roll. The modified guns did not merely fire, they carved. The sky filled with debris, fabric, fragments of lives caught in motion. Yet inside the cockpit, there was no triumph. Only a rising tremor in the controls. Heat, vibration, and the mechanical warning of limits approached. Smoke coiled from the barrels. The smell of burnt oil filled the canopy. He ceased fire, and silence returned, the kind of silence that hums after violence ends. Below, the ocean reflected nothing. In the following minutes, radio chatter confirmed it. 4 Zeros downed, several crippled. The Marines' guns had done in seconds what entire dogfights usually demanded. But the victory carried a shadow. The guns, warped and overheated, would never fire the same again. The modification had worked, once. And that once was enough to make history whisper. When the Corsair landed, the deck crew gathered in silence. The aircraft's nose smoked faintly, the metal scorched and streaked with residue. Mechanics ran gloved fingers along the warped barrels, their surfaces blistered by heat. It was clear that the gun system had pushed beyond every design tolerance. But the results were undeniable. The gunnery logs recorded something the Pacific War had not yet seen. 20 confirmed hits in less than a minute, with ammunition expenditure far lower than standard combat engagements. For a few moments, technology had bent to human audacity. Word spread quietly among pilots. They spoke of that Marine, the one who turned his Corsair into a flying buzzsaw. The modification was whispered about in hangars and mess halls, part admiration, part disbelief. Engineers studied the wrecked guns, taking notes but shaking their heads. "It can't be repeated," they said, "not without melting the wings." Command acknowledged the feat, but issued no orders to replicate it. The balance between firepower and survivability was delicate, and this experiment had teetered too close to destruction. The Marine's daring earned him respect, but also a warning. In official reports, the modification was noted as mechanically unsustainable. Yet unofficially, it became legend, an act that blurred the line between innovation and madness. Among pilots who faced impossible odds, the story lived on. It wasn't about the number of enemies destroyed, but about the defiance behind it. A man's refusal to accept the limits written into his machine. The Pacific rolled on, battles shifting, strategies evolving. But somewhere in the archives of aviation history, a single line remained. A Corsair pilot who redefined the meaning of maximum firepower, if only for 60 unforgettable seconds. History often remembers invention as the product of laboratories and orders, of committees, engineers, and doctrine. But sometimes, progress is born in the cockpit, under pressure, when a single person refuses to accept that the machine before him has already reached its limit. The Marine's modification was not sanctioned, not recorded in blueprints, not standardized in manuals. Yet, it revealed something essential about human ingenuity in war. That necessity, when fused with courage, can create flashes of brilliance too brief to repeat, yet too powerful to forget. The Corsair itself would go on to earn glory as one of the war's finest aircraft. But beneath its polished reputation lies this quiet story of one pilot, one moment, and one machine pushed beyond reason. His act did not change the course of the war, yet it illuminated a deeper truth about conflict, that even in the machinery of mass destruction, the most vital component is still the human hand. In the stillness that followed the Pacific campaigns, when airfields grew silent and hangars emptied, such stories lingered. Mechanics remembered the heat that scorched the gun barrels. Pilots remembered the roar that defied regulation. And historians, decades later, would find in that fleeting act a symbol of wartime imagination. Reckless, desperate, but undeniably human. Perhaps that is the paradox of innovation in war. Progress is often measured not in victories, but in moments of defiance, when someone, somewhere, refuses to stop trying. The Marine's weapon melted, but his idea endured. A reminder that even amid the chaos of battle, the frontier of possibility remains open, waiting for those willing to test it. In that brief blaze of gunfire, one man's audacity carved itself into the long, echoing silence of history.